Madam President, I rise this morning to talk about jobs, the economy, and our nation's energy. And the President, in a few minutes, will be speaking at Georgetown University about energy. Well, I rise today to talk about the President's Environmental Protection Agency and his efforts to regulate our global climate by taxing using a backdoor method called cap and tax, a proposal that we'll be debating here in the Senate and are debating today, because folks back home recall the debate about cap and tax that happened over the last few years. But yet his Environmental Protection Agency tries to do it through a backdoor method. Attempts to pass this massive energy tax on to the hardworking families all across the country has failed. It has failed in Congress. And it has failed because the American public has said we do not want new energy taxes. Americans don't want to pay more for gasoline at the pump, but yet they're experiencing it every day. I saw it just this past weekend in Wyoming. Week after week, the price at the pump goes up. American families don't want to pay more for electricity to heat their homes and run their small businesses. Yet the President's Environmental Protection Agency is attempting to bypass this Congress and enact their own cap and tax policy through regulation. Cap and tax was unacceptable to the American people. It was unacceptable 3 years ago. It was unacceptable 2 years ago. It was unacceptable last year, and it is still unacceptable today. Now, the EPA may think they know better than the American people. That is why this EPA must be stopped. Now, there are different ways to stop the EPA's ongoing regulations. And we have three proposals before us today, but only one is a solution. Of the other amendments, one is a surrender. Another is a distraction. The McConnell-Inhofe amendment, the one I support, is an amendment that will block the EPA's attempt to enact the same cap and tax bill that has been defeated time and time again on Capitol Hill. That is the solution that I will talk about shortly. But I want to talk about the amendments that I have concern with. One is the Baucus Amendment. I do not support the Baucus Amendment. To me, it is an attempt to surrender in the face of the EPA's dramatic regulatory overreach. It's the so-called agriculture exemption. Now, when I talk to people in agriculture, the so-called agriculture exemption doesn't really shield agriculture producers from increased fuel, increased energy, and increased fertilizer costs. The factories, the refineries, the power plants that are the glue that holds the farming industry together, that allow it to function, they will be hit with significant taxes under the Baucus Amendment. The aftershock will be felt by American small businesses and farmers across the West and the Midwest. Now, farmers and small businesses will face higher electricity costs, higher gasoline costs, higher diesel costs, and higher fertilizer costs. Everything from driving a tractor to shipping your produce to market, all of it will go up. Now, farms will close, and the cost of produce at the local produce at the local grocery store, that will go up for all Americans. We are seeing not just pain at the pump. People are paying more for gas, but are also paying more for groceries these days, and this is going to make that worse. So if you have any doubt about the impact the Baucus Amendment will have on farms, I would suggest you talk to the American Farm Bureau, because they oppose this amendment. Another amendment dealing with the EPA is the Rockefeller Amendment, and it calls for a partial delay of the EPA regulations for 2 years. This is really not a delay, it is a distraction. The question is, does it really delay the regulation of greenhouse gases? Well, not really. A couple are delayed, 2 of 6, but 4 greenhouse gases are not. Now, if that sounds like only a partial delay, well, you're correct. It is only partial. Does the Rockefeller Amendment put in safeguards to ensure the Environmental Protection Agency abides by the 2-year partial delay? Well, no, it doesn't. The Rockefeller Amendment does nothing to stop the EPA from stalling construction permits during the 2 years. The amendment also does nothing to prevent the EPA from retroactively requiring costly mandates on small businesses, on power plants, and on manufacturing facilities. It also does not prevent climate change nuisance suits, which are filed in court by groups opposed to fossil fuel development. Now, it seems to me that the Rockefeller Amendment only delays job growth, while giving a green light to the EPA to proceed with regulations that will be costly to American families and to our American economy. So, for those of us who are looking to protect jobs across the country, to restore Congress's authority to determine our own energy future, this type of amendment can only be described as a partial delay. It is a distraction. We really don't need a surrender. We don't need a distraction. What we need is a solution. And the solution, Madam President, is the McConnell-Inhofe Amendment. This amendment restores the Clean Air Act to its true meaning and congressional intent. Let me get back to that again. This amendment restores the Clean Air Act to its true meaning and congressional intent. The McConnell-Inhofe administration blocks EPA's attempt to enact cap and tax. Now, they're trying to do it, a backdoor route, cap and tax, and what the McConnell Amendment does is blocks the EPA's attempt by removing the EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act, by repealing the EPA's endangerment finding that says carbon dioxide is a threat to public health, by repealing the tailoring rule that says the EPA can arbitrarily pick and choose which businesses they want to target, and also by applying immediately to all greenhouse gases. This is the amendment that we must pass to rein in the EPA and to protect jobs. This is the amendment that's been endorsed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, by the Business Roundtable, by the American Farm Bureau, and Americans for Prosperity. Now, the list of supporters of this amendment is extensive. Madam President, we need to get serious about America's energy future. Congress needs the time to get this policy right. We need to make America's energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can, and do it without raising energy prices or hurting American families or jobs. The McConnell-Inhofe Amendment is the right solution. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.